Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to What You Need to Know. I am Sybil Wilkes, and formerly of the Tom Joyner Morning Show. He is Tom Joyner of the Tom Joyner Morning Show. And also joining us today is Dr. David Marion. He is the international president of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Hello, doctor. Hello, Tom. How are you both today?
Oh, I'm good. Doing great, Sybil. Glad to be here with you both.
It is so great as we continue our series and talking to the leaders of the Divine Nine. And Dr. Marion, before we even get started, I want to thank you for all your help in making this happen and really giving us the impetus to reach out and to talk to all of the leaders of your fellow fraternities and sorority organizations. And thank you so very much for your leadership in making this happen once again.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Marion and Tom Joyner, we like to talk the topics of the What You Need to Know newsletter. For people who are not familiar with What You Need to Know, it is the newsletter that we started before the end of the Tom Joyner Morning Show last year. And what we do is talk news and politics for the most part. And of course, we have a lot going on at this particular moment. We also have a coronavirus update each and every day, which we started doing well in advance of the sequestration, the shutdown, the lock-in, whatever you want to call it. And this is born out of my years with the Tom Joyner Morning Show, in which Tom taught us well on how to super serve the African American community with our news, with our entertainment, and all that encompassed the Tom Joyner Morning Show. And so we took that charge that he left with us, and we created the What You Need to Know newsletter. If you'd like to be a part of this, we would like for you to go to my website. It's SybilWilkes.com, SYBILWILKES, Sybil like the crazy girl, Wilkes like John Wilkes Booth. And if you leave us your email address and your name, we will get that in your email box each and every weekday morning, Monday through Friday, first thing in the morning. You can turn to the What You Need to Know newsletter. So and we will continue to encourage people. And I would appreciate your subscription as well, Dr. Marion. Tom is a subscriber of this, and all good Omega men should be. As we start this Monday, of course, a lot of the discussion is surrounding George Floyd, his final homegoing, as over the weekend, well, actually last week, they had the service for him in Minneapolis. On Saturday, they had the service for him where many of his members of his family still live, and he was born in North Carolina. That took place on Saturday. Today, public viewing is probably just finishing up. Well, it's scheduled to stop at 6 o'clock Central Time, with all of the people, thousands expected today to pay their last respects. And tomorrow will be a final service for family and friends. And it is just a tremendous outpouring of support for not only for this family, but now where do we go from here? And a lot of discussion as we talk about in the What You Need to Know newsletter tomorrow about funding, defunding, and disbanding of police departments and things that we have going on there. And one of the people that is mentioned in the story is Joe Biden, because as of right now, as of late last week, he was certified as the candidate for the Democratic Party for the nomination for president. And he went past that mark of 1,991 delegates needed for the nomination. And so it is the formal nomination, of course, will take place at the convention in whatever form that takes. But just wondering if you, either one of you have any thoughts about Joe Biden and finally getting over the hump, and even in advance of important primary elections tomorrow, especially in Georgia and South Carolina.
Quit messing around, Democratic and Joe Biden. Let's go ahead and let's name your running mate, okay? And it better be either Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris. And let's get the campaigning. Let's get the stomping.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think I've had the opportunity very recently to be on the call with Vice President Biden at their invitation to talk with him as a part of the Council of Presidents of the Divine Nine and be able to talk about the Black agenda, what's important to Black folks, to get his take specifically on our issues of healthcare and businesses, employment, the disparities with healthcare, education, HBCUs, just go down the line. And so I was very grateful to be able to participate in that conversation.
Dr. Marion, as a man who is involved in healthcare and especially in our mental health, what were your suggestions, or what would you like to see as a part of the Biden platform?
Well, we have to do something to address the longstanding health issues in the African American community. People like to talk about hypertension and diabetes and high cholesterol, but I think the longstanding issues is inadequate access to testing and treatment. Some of the same things we're seeing right now with the coronavirus, where African Americans are the last to be tested. Once tested, they're the last to be treated. And that's why we see that we're dying at a higher rate than other races when it comes to the coronavirus, and also being infected at a higher rate. So we're just talking about some of the things that we can deal with the disparities in our care and in the healthcare of others.
This is a real important talk, Tom, and as you know, and Dr. Marion, as you have listened to the Tom Joyner Morning Show for years, this was always very important to Tom in talking about the health disparities and even creating a years-long effort to improve the health in the African American community through his initiative, Take a Loved One to the Doctor Day. Then it moved beyond a day to a season, and then overall, it was pretty much took over the years. And so Tom, recognizing that and speaking to that, what would you suggest to the Vice President as he gets closer to the nomination, the formal nomination, regarding some of those issues regarding our health?
Was that to myself or Tom?
Tom.
Okay.
I was asking you about your thoughts and your suggestion to the Vice President, to Vice President Biden, regarding that healthcare initiative. And as you have known these many years with Take a Loved One to the Doctor on the Tom Joyner Show.
Our issues as a people hasn't changed from the first from 2008 and the election of Barack Obama and Joe Biden till now. The biggest issue right now in regards to Black people is, can Joe Biden beat Trump? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I would also, if I could add this about one of the things that Omega Psi Phi has done to address some of these disparities, particularly in the area of mental health. We have an initiative called Brother, You're on My Mind. And we partnered with the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities. And this initiative is first to make our own members aware of the signs and symptoms of mental illness and resources in their community to go and get help in our efforts to reduce the stigma attached to mental illness, to help reduce the disparities in terms of African Americans, particularly African American men, going to get mental health treatment.
That's so important, Doctor, and I applaud you on that initiative, because it is something throughout our community, but especially amongst our men, and whether it's our mental health or their physical health, these things, and that's a great title too, but these things are so very important for the longevity of our community. So let me just say that one of the issues that came about over the weekend regarding Joe Biden versus Donald Trump was the declaration by our general, four-star general, Colin Powell, and his vote not for Donald Trump, a fellow Republican, if you can call him a fellow Republican, for General Powell. But the former National Secretary of State also said that he is just not the representative of what he thinks should be the leader for this country. And for the second time, he will not be voting for Donald Trump. And he called him a liar. He just flat out called him a liar. And this has created a lot of headlines, but it's something that General Powell felt very strongly about in discussing it, especially on the Sunday talk shows. And you all have any thoughts on that?
But he stopped short of saying if he would go out and campaign.
Yeah, but I'm not mad at that, Tom. You think that was necessary?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, to endorse him is good, but it's nothing like, seeing if you saw Colin Powell out there, in the streets, stomping the streets, going to rallies and stuff. Yeah, I would like to see that.
And I would think that's a very powerful message, a shot across the bow when you have someone of his stature say that to someone of his party. And so it's going to be fascinating to see the weeks and months ahead as we approach this election.
I think that, Condoleezza Rice stopped short of saying who she was going to endorse, and she was on the Sunday chat show too, but she did not say that, she would not be endorsing Donald Trump, but she is, when they were talking about what's going on in our streets and what have you. But I think that is a big endorsement, as you say, Dr. Marion. And Tom, I'm not sure that General Powell, I'm not a 75-year-old man, but I'm not sure that maybe he wants to go out there. Maybe he feels as though his influence can be greater doing something on a virtual level. And participating in programs like this online and on YouTube Live and things like that.
Okay, I mean, but that's just me. I would like.
You would like to be out there, I know.
I'd like to be out there too,
Yeah.
stomping.
Well, I think Tom is old school too. Actions speak louder than words, so that's what he wants to see.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Marion. He is about walking the walk and not just talking the talk. You're right, absolutely. So one of the good things that has come out, one of the many good things that has come out of the protests that have taken place in our country over the last 2 weeks is that as people are protesting, others are there to register them to vote, Tom and Dr. Marion, and that has been awesome. Tens of thousands of new voters have been signed up in the process over the last 2 weeks, and Vote.org has recognized this. The First Lady Michelle Obama's organization, When We All Vote, hey, they have recognized the importance of this and how the numbers have just gone up exponentially. And this is a really good thing, as the president said last week. President Obama said in his speech last week, it's not so much that we protest or vote, we protest and vote. And it looks like folks are getting the message with that. And it's really important that we not only encourage them to vote, but we protest, we register, and we vote.
Who would you like to see as Joe Biden? Who would you like to see as Joe Biden's vice president?
Dr. Marion, you have a thought on that?
He's asking me. I want a African-American woman, and that's been our position. I don't know if I'm gonna go so far as Tom did and name a few and leave out another. But what we've understood is Val Demings in Florida, Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, all of the ones that Tom was talking about, and I think all of those Some have said Marcia Fudge. All of those are strong Black women that I believe would do a great job.
And it was great to see today. I don't know if you saw the press conference in which the Congressional Black Caucus and high-ranking members of the House of Representatives, but some strong Black women who were represented in the introduction of the Policing Act 2020. And of course, leading the way there is chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, and that's Karen Bass of California, as well as Kamala Harris. And so all of these great names, and as you mentioned, Val Demings, and she's really coming up on around the edge there on the corner, making that turn into the final days of what we hope will be before the announcement. She is.
Well, you know, Stacey Abrams can carry Georgia.
Yeah.
And you know that Kamala Harris can carry California.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those are big states.
Those are big. That's huge.
But also, Tom, think of this: Val Demings and taking care of Florida.
Right.
Those are all very important states. The only thing missing is a Barbara Jordan-like character that could take over the state of Texas.
I would say don't forget about Marcia Fudge in the state of
Ohio. Exactly. Exactly, doctor. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And those are important states, and states that were very important to Donald Trump in the last election, especially as far as the electoral vote was concerned.
Yeah, I was on a great call with Congresswoman Bass and Senator Kamala Harris and Senator Cory Booker earlier today about that legislation that they have before the U.S. House of Representatives, justice and policing.
Mm-hmm. And what was your takeaway in that, Dr. Marion?
I thought it's an outstanding, good start to what we need to see in terms of policing. And they admitted that it's not a one thing that's going to fit all of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is a good start to look at holding bad cops accountable early on versus what we saw with George Floyd.
Dismantling the whole police department. I like that.
In Minneapolis, that's what the city council is calling for.
The whole police department. Don't try to save it. Get rid of it.
Well, it seems to be that's what the city council is in favor of. The mayor, Jonathan Fry, I believe, but Mayor Fry, he has said he's not in favor of dismantling it, but he is in favor of of defunding and taking some of the funds and doing away with and putting them in other social services such as education and employment and mental health care as well. A lot of these things that the police are called to do that they are not equipped to do. And one of the other things I thought was really interesting, and I hope that it stays in the bill as it moves out of the House into the Senate and perhaps into our workplaces of the police departments, is that they will have a national database which will have the listing of the things that these police have been accused of, that they have been found guilty of, which will be a part of their permanent record. They won't be able to go to another department and get a job because this will be on their record and what sent them from one department to another in search of another job.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, that we find out right after the murder of George Floyd that the officer that had his knee on his neck had 18 complaints.
Yes.
And now we find out that his boss may have had more complaints than he had.
Than he did, right. Wow. And so these are all very important issues. And Tom, I'm not sure how most of the municipalities are going to go for just dismantling the police departments altogether. That's a pretty awesome endeavor, if I can use even a trite statement like that. It's overwhelming for a lot of people. But where do you go once you dismantle a police department? Where do you go from there?
You start over.
I know, but it's just not that easy to start over, is it? It's just to
I
start
think
a police department from
I think
scratch.
it's easier to start over than trying to get rid of the rotten apples.
Hmm.
The whole barrel is rotten now, and so start over. I think that's the right thing to do.
Well, that's where the people of Minneapolis appear to be in the same boat with you regarding that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. The last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is I want to get back and watch the NFL as much as the next guy or gal. But Roger Goodell came out with his apology to the NFL players and to the nation, in effect, after a group of NFL players and some inside NFL employees put together a video and called for the NFL to support them in this fight against racial brutality in the police department and the killings that are going on in the names of those that they said, like Breonna Taylor, like George Floyd, like Ahmaud Arbery. And then quickly, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, came out with his video and apologized. And he said the names of those people who were brutalized by police and by those citizens police. But he did not say the most important name. He did not apologize to the most important person that I thought that initiated all of this. And that was to say the name of Colin Kaepernick. And I think he was remiss in that. And I hope that they will clarify. He apologized, but it wasn't enough because of the way that this his career has just been sidelined as a result of all the misunderstandings and not understanding what he was doing this for, what it was all about. And even to the last minute with Drew Brees.
Roger Goodell is all about money, and I don't think that legally he might not be able to say I apologize to Cap because they settled.
Yeah.
Cap in the NFL,
Yeah.
you know,
So
he might not be.
he has to keep his name out his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was something strategic about his response. I mean, just for us to be having this conversation where he's making this apology and trying to connect emotionally and it be as sincere as possible about mistakes they've made as it relates to this issue and not mention the man's name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with Tom. He just can't get too carried away with saying his name out loud. But I'm interested to see what he does with, see how impactful Jay-Z can be. I'm just really interested in seeing what will happen next.
Well, I'm very interested with you. I stand with you, Dr. Marion. I'm curious as to what their next steps will be, what this will look like come the fall. First of all, in the wake of this first wave of the coronavirus, and what the games will look like, as well as the players who will now take a knee and feel comfortable in doing so.
Yes.
The NFL,
go ahead, Tom.
TV, and all these other streaming services are trying to sell the NFL ticket now, right now.
Mm-hmm.
They need some orders, and so
Yeah.
reason Roger Goodell made that statement, because when it comes to money, that's all they're about. They don't care about the fans. They certainly don't care about the players. You know, they don't care. They don't care about these black lives that's been snuffed by police. Roger Goodell in the NFL is all about money, 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 and he wouldn't have said a damn thing. I mean, how many notices have you gotten in the mail about renewing your NFL ticket?
Oh,
I know I have.
yeah, yeah. Dr.
Yeah.
Marion, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think he's right. I'm a Oakland Raider, now Las Vegas Raider fan,
Oh, wow.
going back to the 70s. And so I've seen them build this fantastic stadium in Las Vegas during a pandemic. I've seen them sell out tickets during a pandemic and not know whether or not they can even play games.
Yeah.
And so there's certainly a lot of truth to what Tom is saying. But I think that's true in so many other areas, that it's all about the bottom line. It's all about business. We saw that with this during this pandemic, to reopen the economy during a pandemic tells you that it's all about the bottom line. We saw President Trump this last week highlight the economic numbers for the month of May as it relates to unemployment. So we understand the environment that we're in, and we're astute enough to pick it out and point it out when we see it. And so I just think we all have to be very careful. This coronavirus is serious.
Oh, man.
It has really impacted so many brothers in the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Many of our brothers have died. Many of our brothers are fighting the coronavirus. I think, and what's worse is when we do experience death, we can't come together and help each other and console each other during these times. You have to grieve from a distance. You have to grieve virtually. And so these are some pretty tough times. And to see the bottom line be about money often hurts one to their core.
Right. Yeah. And as Tom has always said, follow the money. And this is another case of it coming to be. Dr. David Marion, let me ask you, as we look to Omega Psi Phi, how did you find your way to the Omegas? What was your journey to joining the fraternity?
Watching men on the campus of Mississippi State University be men, watching them excel academically, watching them be the leaders on campus, watching them have all the women. Let's throw that in there. Watching other great organizations, admiring and honoring them for the work that they did. And so it was a natural draw. I didn't realize it was an internal draw, because the first man that I ever met that was a member of Omega Psi Phi was my piano teacher.
Really? As a kid?
Who, by the way, died a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
And we couldn't grieve properly, right?
Oh, right.
And so I would watch and look at the paraphernalia around his home and around the pianos, but I didn't really know what it was. The second Omega man is from Tuskegee University, Tom, Arthur McFarland. And
yeah,
you know Arthur. And so I would see him wearing the t-shirts. And then I went to Mississippi State and saw it and just was naturally drawn to it, and just have never, it is one of the things that you can ask any Omega man. We have never regretted that decision to choose this fraternity to be a member of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tom, how did you find your way to Omega Psi Phi? Was it based upon legacy? Was it your family, or was there something else that brought you to the fraternity?
The legacy and lineage had a lot to do with it. First of all, my father was a Q. I pledged at Florida A&M. My brother was the Basileus on Tuskegee's campus. And I really admired my brother.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be like my brother. My brother was a star.
Right.
I was just the brother of a star.
The pesky little brother of the Basileus, huh?
Yeah.
That's fun.
The little fat redhead brother of Albert Joyner was really my name. For the longest, until maybe I got on the radio, and then I was Tom Joyner,
right?
The bald brother of Albert.
And Albert Joyner created quite a swath, a path for people to follow behind him. And like a lot of men, going back to 1911, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity created on the campus of Howard. And this is the first fraternity for Black men founded on the campus of a historically Black college and university.
Over 200,000 initiated men of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, over 750 chapters, and in 14 countries.
Wow.
That's what started from those four men, November 17, 1911.
And I don't care where I go in the world, Sybil, and you've been with me too. I'm always greeted by a brother, and you all and we give each other grip, and you go, oh, not again.
It doesn't matter where we go. You're absolutely right.
We've been all around the world.
That's right. That's right. And Doctor, let's talk about some of the things that you're doing. You talked about that the mental health care initiative. How did that start? Where did that begin?
Well, it started, I became first Vice Grand Basileus in 2014. And a month later, I had an audience with the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities that was put together by some AKAs. And from there, that grew to me meeting their boss, who was a Delta. And they wanted to partner with us. And we certainly wanted to partner to get this message out, because that's the work that I'm in. I'm in the mental health field. And so having served in this field 28 years, I know what can happen for people who need help and don't go get it. And so if there was a way that we can reduce that stigma, not only for my own brothers, but also for African-American men, specifically in African-American individuals in general,
right?
Then we really want to do that. And we've seen that be very beneficial in the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We can really have genuine conversations about mental illness, mental diagnoses. I went to get help. We have some chapters where brothers are, did you take your medicine? Do I need to go with you somewhere? I don't like where you are. Let's go do this. We have a lot of veterans in our fraternity. And so we try to deal with issues like PTSD right up front and help each other. So it's become, we're doing it now during the pandemic, where I've challenged every Omega man to call 4 other Omega men, not to talk about Omega politics or not to do Omega gossip, but just to call them and tell them you love them. How is your family? We're calling to let you know I was thinking about you, brother. You were on my mind. And so that's what that initiative has grown to over these almost 5 years.
Wow, that's a powerful message and a powerful conversation that you have started with, especially as you say, with Black men and kind of whatever the negative thoughts that one might have about mental health and maintaining it and checking up on each other. That's so vital, especially in light of even today with the pandemic and people who are still locked in and still are, you know, held to their homes because of fear of any more spread of the coronavirus. It's as important today as it was 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
What year did you pledge at Mississippi State?
1979.
And did the brothers from Jackson State have to pledge you?
No, they didn't have to, but some did.
You pledged hard.
79. Yes, sir.
and I know as Grand Basileus, you are the international president. As such, you keep in touch with all of those. But what about your line brothers? Still as close today?
Oh, we talk Stanley Reeves and Vincent Jones. May 11th is our date, 1979. So we certainly communicate on that day. check in on each other, do those brother, you're on my mind checks. Certainly will never forget the journey that I had with those two.
Was
How many
that
lamps? How many lamps online with you?
3.
Man, and how many got turned around?
No, it was just us 3. That was it, from beginning to end.
All right.
Wow. And last year was your 40th anniversary.
Correct.
Did you all do anything to celebrate?
No, we were supposed to meet at a leadership conference, but that didn't, we had our leadership conference in Atlantic City, and we didn't get a chance to meet there because at our leadership conference, when you get to these milestones, you're given awards, service awards, and that kind of thing. We weren't able to do that. So we're trying to make certain we meet in Charlotte. Our convention for this year has been canceled. I had to make that tough decision because it was too dangerous for our brothers to come and congregate and fellowship. And as Tom talked about, gripping up. The coronavirus passes through our social networks. So we had to cancel that. So we're actually having a virtual conclave next month. So it's our intent to get together and really celebrate that when we get together for our next conclave.
Gotcha. And
social gripping up. Can't do it.
Can't do it.
You just have to do, you just got to make do and make a way out of what this way where we are right now, right? You just got to. Absolutely.
How to give another grip feels good, Sybil.
Dr. Marion, you said you'll have the virtual conference next month. What are the dates?
July 17th through the 19th.
And as such, you're dealing with so many different issues, and I know that you all have a lot on your plate. But as we mentioned about the election and the census, are you all, we have talked about this in past days, are you all doing specific things or have programs encouraging people to complete, your members to complete and mail in the 2020 census as well as voter registration?
Mail in, do by phone, or do online. We've pushed that to members, and we've also pushed that out to the community. This pandemic is what it is, but we understand that that's where federal monies come. That's how your representation is determined in Congress. Monies come into our communities in terms of schools, healthcare, roads and bridges, and so forth. We know that redistricting often occurs on the heels of a census. And we also know that African Americans have been undercounted in all previous runs of a census every 10 years. The last census in 2010, numbers tell us that about 1 million African Americans were undercounted. And so, we understand some of the reasons for that undercount in terms of poverty and in terms of 60% of African Americans rent. And so we understand about those kind of issues, but we've been getting the word out about that. We've also been getting the word out about voting because while it's important, and the brothers had been put on restrictions during this pandemic, but they asked to be released from those so they can participate peacefully in these protests. And so we went ahead and gave them the word on doing that. So you've been seeing Omega Psi Phi everywhere doing their protests. Some of the protests have not been what you are used to looking at. It might be feeding the hungry. It might be cleaning up after a protest. So we've been doing it all kinds of ways. We're pushing voting because we understand the most important march is the one on November 3rd. So if you march now, but don't march on election day and go vote, then, and we wake up on November 4th and we see the same thing, we're in trouble. And so those are the kinds of initiatives that we're pushing. I serve as the vice chair on the Council of Presidents for the Divine Nine. And all of the fraternities have come together on an initiative called Black Men Vote. And what we're doing is trying to push and have an additional 1 million African American men vote in this upcoming election. We think that is the kind of impact that we need to bring to the table.
And Tom, you understand that. I mean, you know, going back as far as your involvement with Omega Psi Phi and the things that you've done, not only as a native Tuskegee, but also as a member of this great fraternity.
And it feels so good to watch a protest march on the news, and you see somebody holding up the shield, you know, representing the frat, you know. That makes me feel so good, almost as good as giving another brother some grip.
Dr. Marion, as far as the coronavirus, have you had like a multi-pronged approach to this? And you talked about losing members and about not being able to properly mourn the loss of these members or gather at homegoing services and things like that. What has been your approach as far as the organization in fighting the coronavirus and some of the things you talk about amongst your members?
Well, one of the first things we had, all this occurred right in the midst of our regional meeting cycle. Mm-hmm. And so I had to send out some guidance to the Brotherhood that we were not going to have these district meetings that are across the country and abroad, that we weren't going to do them in person. And so the next thing we had to do was educate our members.
Yeah.
And tell them that we could not do face-to-face chapter meetings. So they've been doing virtual chapter meetings. We've been doing virtual mentoring. We've been doing virtual work with the elderly. So we've been participating in some virtual programming that allows us to live up to the creed of service that we do. But we've talked about the seriousness of this to make certain that no one took this lightly, that it was important to wear face masks, to do hand washing of 20 seconds or longer, to use sanitizer of 70% or stronger, and do the social distancing. We've also communicated to them of the lives we've lost, mm-hmm. to show them that this is serious, and that people that should not have died solely because of being infected with the coronavirus.
I'm curious when you talk about your virtual meetings and conversations, especially amongst the mentoring as well as the conversations with the elderly. How's that going?
I think, all of it's new, but we know the work
for a lot of us.
The work has to be done. We'll have a virtual youth leadership conference next month. We'll have a virtual STEM program, international STEM program virtually. And so I think it gets, you just got to get used to that. Mm-hmm. But I'm, now I'm about zoomed out because it's everywhere, but I think it's extremely impactful when we can connect that way.
Who'd have thought that a Lionel Richie song would take off like this, Tom Joyner, even years after, right? So Dr. Marion, talk to me a little bit about the mentorship. I'm always curious about, as you said, you didn't even know about the influence you had from Omega Men before you got to the campus of Mississippi State. But you guys developed these mentorship programs for the young men years before they get to college campuses, don't you?
Well, they're impactful. We understand the importance of a man setting the proper example, not only for young African-American boys, but for young African-American women, mm-hmm. young girls, for them to see what men look like, how yes. men truly act and behave. My grandfather used to say that some people might not ever read the Bible, but they should know one exists simply by looking at you. Mm. And so my behavior and how I act and how we set the stage for these young boys, we have a wonderful youth leadership conference in Los Angeles that's been going on since the Rodney King beatings. Mm-hmm. And at that, under the leadership of our first vice, Grand Basileus Ricky Lewis, you might have 700 or 800 young boys there. You might have 200 or 300 moms and fathers. And so this mentoring is not only about the young kids, but it's also, let us work with the moms, let us work with the dads, let us help them maybe learn some parenting skills that they were never given.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do it all over the world. We do mentoring. I'll award a grant to a chapter that's in Japan,
Wow.
doing mentoring in
Wow.
Japan, doing mentoring in the Bahamas. We do it everywhere we go. We just know how important it is to touch the lives of our young people.
And Tom, you have demonstrated that with, of course, through the Tom Joyner Foundation, but certainly your foundation has done the work. But also, it's got to be heartwarming and make you very proud that your fraternity is doing the same thing.
And my fraternity has donated a lot of money. And a lot of students get scholarships at historically Black colleges. And so, Brother Basileus, thank you so much for the support of the Tom Joyner Foundation. And I know the fraternity will continue to do that.
And Tom, you'd be proud of an initiative that was announced last week, June 1st, where we're asking, it's called Omega 1000 for 1,000. And we're asking 1,000 Omega men, 1,000 QATs, 1,000 foundations, corporations to give $1,000 to this HBCU initiative so we can even further impact HBCUs. We just think that's important. My undergraduate degree is from Jackson State. That's why I was laughing at you when you said that. I left Mississippi State and finished up at Jackson State. HBCUs are in my heart. And it's so important that during this pandemic, when they are truly suffering because of not having students come to campus, there's a concern of what school life will look like in August. They're really hurting. And so I've asked Omega men to dig in their pockets and give to this particular project. So I know, Tom, you'd be appreciative of that. That falls right in line with what you've lived your life doing.
Yeah, you're right about that. Right now, we're concentrating on helping students who had to leave school mid-semester and might not have money to come back.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to be focusing on at the foundation.
Yeah, and that's what you're saying, Dr. Marion. Just don't know what August looks like as you come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Marion, do you have a fun memory of your days, your early days as a member of Omega Psi Phi that you can share with an audience of all ages?
That's, I think you just eliminated most of my early. I'm waiting. I don't know. That really put me on the spot, you know. So just to be safe, let me just say how much I've enjoyed fellowshipping with the brothers, and particularly the older brothers. We talk about this mentoring, the older brothers that took me in and trained me. You know, I think about Dr. Connolly, who was a principal in Starkville. I think about Fletcher Ruff, just some older brothers in Mississippi that Dr. W.A. McMillan, who was the president of Russ College for all those years, just taking a personal interest in me and wanting to make certain that I did this thing right. It is because of those men that I sit in the position. Dr. David Beckley, who just retired from Russ College. And you can just go down the list. Moses Norman, who was at Clark Atlanta. Dr. Norman was a former Grand Basileus of the Omega Psi Phi. Dorsey Miller, who was a former Grand Basileus. These are men that said, come over here for a minute. You know, let me talk to you, young buck. Let me tell you, that's not how we do things. That's not what our founders would do. And I'll cherish those memories of those men, some who have gone and some who are still here, who raised me right in this fraternity.
That's nice. That's nice. Tom, do you have anything you can share with us on a G-rated level?
Well, my brother was the Basileus of our chapter, when I pledged, and he protected me as much as he could. And I was the little Basileus, so I caught hell twice as much as anybody else that was on the line. You know what I'm talking about, Brother Basileus. So yeah, those were my memories.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Marion, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on today. And as I said, with your help in the past few weeks or so, as we've been trying to put this all together, your stewardship in all of this has just been magnificent. And I appreciate all the work. And if there's anything we can do here and what you need to know to help you continue to put out the word, I encourage you to reach out at any time. And please, if I may invite you to subscribe to the What You Need to Know newsletter. If you go to SybilWilkes.com and all of you great members of Omega Psi Phi, please go to SybilWilkes.com, give us your name and your email address, and we'll put you into our newsletter group, and we would appreciate serving you as time goes on. And Tom Joyner, I thank you once again. Your friend Tony Gray says that you need to get some of these black athletes to go to the HBCUs, and so a tip of the hat, if I may, to Tony Gray. Thank you for watching and for participating in the conversation. And Tom, I'll give you an opportunity to say happy birthday to flybaby number 1. I'm hard to believe Griffin L. Joyner is now 14 years old.
Yep, June 7th.
Wow.
And she's all so tall.
She's all leg, huh? Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Doctor, I thank you so much. Tomorrow, we will have a conversation with the president of Kappa Alpha Psi, that is Reuben A. Shelton III, Esquire. And Dr. David Marion, once again, thank you so much. Tom, thank you very much, and we appreciate all of you. If you have any other questions, you can see the button there below, and if you click onto that, you can also subscribe to the newsletter or go to SybilWilkes.com. With that, I wish you all a very good evening. Please be careful out there, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Take care.